After my car accident landed me in Cedar Hills Medical Center, my family group chat blew up with photos from my sister's Vegas weekend. Nobody showed up. Days later, still in my hospital gown, I opened my phone to 73 missed calls and a message from my dad, "Call us back now. It's urgent." I did. And then it's strange how you can feel your life slipping out of your hands in complete silence. No screams, no screeching brakes, just metal crunching and the airbag slamming into my chest. 1 second, I was thinking about dinner, Olive Garden breadsticks or Five Guys burgers. The next, I was upside down in my Honda Civic, hanging from the seatbelt like a broken marionette, staring through spider-webbed glass at a Walmart parking lot I never saw coming. Someone pried open the door and asked if I could hear them. I nodded. Blood trickled down from a cut above my eyebrow, and I remember tasting copper in the back of my throat. The rest became a haze of flashing lights, morphine drips, and the antiseptic smell that clings to every hospital corridor. When I finally came to properly, I was in a room that felt like a beige prison. A nurse with kind eyes told me I had a separated shoulder, 3 cracked ribs, and a moderate concussion. Moderate, that was the word they used. I couldn't lift my arm without crying, but sure, moderate. They said I was fortunate. I didn't feel fortunate. I felt invisible. After they moved me from the ER to the recovery wing, I kept waiting for my phone to buzz. Someone had to know, right? Word spreads fast in families. I figured maybe Dad got a call from the police. Maybe my sister Brooke heard through the grapevine. At minimum, I thought Mom would check in when I didn't respond to her usual daily texts. I was wrong. My iPhone sat on that sterile bedside table for 2 full days. Not a single notification. I didn't touch it until the second night when insomnia and pain meds created a perfect storm of restlessness. When I finally opened it, there were 31 unread messages. Not from friends, not from coworkers, but from our family group chat called the Williams clan. For one delusional moment, I thought they knew. That they cared. The first photo hit like a physical blow. Brooke in a white spa robe, martini in hand, throwing up a peace sign. Caption, "Living my best life in Sin City." What followed was a montage of self-indulgence, her in a hot tub overlooking the strip, getting a pedicure, posing with sushi rolls that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Each image more tone-deaf than the last. Mom had commented on every single one, "You deserve this, honey," and "So proud of my beautiful girl." Dad contributed his signature thumbs-up emojis and "Have fun, kiddo." Not one message asking where I was. Not one mention of my silence being unusual. I stared at that screen until my vision blurred. Had I told them about the accident? No, I was unconscious when the paramedics brought me in. The intake nurse had asked about emergency contacts, and I'd said I'd handle it later. Deep down, I think I wanted to see if they'd notice my absence without prompting. They didn't. 3 days passed in that hospital room. The only visitors I had were nurses checking vitals and a physical therapist named Kevin who looked fresh out of college. He kept reminding me to breathe deeply so my ribs wouldn't seize up. I followed his instructions, but every inhale felt like someone driving nails between my bones. I lay there in that scratchy hospital gown, bruised and forgotten, thinking about all the times I'd been their safety net. The frantic 2 a.m. calls from Brooke begging for rent money when her marketing job forgot to pay her on time. Mom's credit card debt I'd quietly absorbed after Dad's hours got cut at the Ford dealership. The $1,200 transmission repair I covered for Dad last Christmas when he said money was tight. Every crisis, every just this once, I never hesitated. I was the reliable one, the problem solver, the family bank account with legs. And now? Radio silence. On day 4, they discharged me with a bottle of Percocet and instructions not to drive for a week. I sat in the hospital lobby for 45 minutes waiting for an Uber because nobody had offered to pick me up. I didn't even think to ask. The driver, a middle-aged woman named Rosa, made small talk about the weather while I sat hunched in the back seat, still wearing the hospital gown under my Northwestern University hoodie because I couldn't lift my arm high enough to change. Home felt different. My 1-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park seemed smaller, quieter. I slept most of that first day, drifting in and out on a cocktail of exhaustion and pain medication. When I finally turned my phone's ringer back on the next morning, it nearly vibrated off the nightstand. 73 missed calls. They'd all come in over the last 48 hours. Most from Dad, several from Brooke, A handful from Mom. No voicemails, just a text message sitting at the top of my lock screen like a neon sign. Dad, call us back now. It's urgent. I called immediately. He answered before the first ring finished, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. There was something different in his tone, not the usual casual confidence, but genuine fear. What he said next didn't register at first. Something about frozen accounts. Something about declined cards. I didn't interrupt, just listened while lying on my couch in the same clothes I'd been discharged in. As the pieces fell together, I realized something that should have terrified me but instead felt like vindication. For the first time in years, they needed me more than I needed them. And I was done being their ATM. When I called Dad back, I was still curled up on my sectional couch, the same spot I'd collapsed into after the Uber dropped me off. I hadn't even changed out of the hospital gown. It was easier than trying to lift my arms over my head. The scratchy fabric against my healing ribs made everything ache worse. The phone didn't ring. Dad answered like he'd been clutching it, waiting. His voice didn't sound angry, it sounded shaken. That was unusual for him. He was the guy who fixed transmission problems with duct tape and faced down bill collectors with a smile. He said they'd been trying to reach me for 2 days straight. I didn't respond to that observation. He launched into an explanation, or maybe it was more like verbal panic. Something about Brooke's rent payment bouncing, her debit card getting declined at Cheesecake Factory, her inability to access her Chase checking account. At first, I thought maybe she'd been hacked. Then he mentioned her backup card, the one linked to my Wells Fargo account, was frozen too. He kept talking, words tumbling over each other. Mom had tried transferring money for her ComEd bill and it bounced. Her Discover card, the one I'd added her to as an authorized user, stopped working mid-transaction at Target. She thought it was a system glitch until the bank called about suspicious activity flagging. Then her Netflix autopay failed. Her Spotify Premium got suspended. That's when they realized this wasn't random. Dad asked, almost cautiously, if I knew what was happening. I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. Then I told him, my voice steady as granite, I froze everything. I explained methodically. The secondary cards, cancelled. The backup account Brooke used for emergencies, closed. The automatic transfers that covered their shortfalls, blocked. All of it, systematically dismantled. He sounded genuinely shocked, like I'd told him I'd burned down their house. He asked why, and that's when I told him everything. The accident 4 days ago, my Honda flipping on Lake Shore Drive, the broken ribs, separated shoulder, concussion. 3 nights at Cedar Hills Medical Center walking out alone because nobody in the family even realized I was missing. Then I told him about the spa photos. The group chat exploding with champagne flutes and hot stone massages and infinity pools while I was hooked up to 4 drips and heart monitors. I'd seen every single message, every comment, every thumbs up emoji while I lay there wondering if anyone would notice I'd disappeared. He tried to backtrack. Said they didn't know, that if they had known, obviously they would have come. I asked him point blank why nobody wondered about my silence. Why no one thought to check when I went radio silent for 4 straight days. That's when he shifted into damage control mode. He said Brooke was dealing with anxiety issues. That Mom had her own stress with Dad's reduced hours at the dealership. That the Vegas trip was supposed to help Brooke's mental health. He even suggested maybe I should have reached out first. That's when I snapped. I told him I was done being the one who always reached out. Done being the family's financial backup plan. I'd covered Brooke's rent 6 times in 2 years, helped Mom consolidate $8,000 in credit card debt, and paid Dad's emergency dental work that he never even thanked me for. He asked if I was really going to abandon my family over this. I told him I already had, quietly, while lying in that hospital bed, scrolling through Vegas vacation photos, realizing I could die and they wouldn't find out until their credit cards got declined at Starbucks. Then I hung up. That night, I opened my MacBook and did something I should have done years ago. I pulled up every financial account I had any connection to, the ones they'd conveniently forgotten I'd helped set up, the temporary assistants that somehow became permanent, the accounts that never got transferred back to their names after I'd helped them through various crises. I created a spreadsheet. Row by row, I documented everything: Verizon phone bills, Netflix Premium, Spotify Family, Brooke's rent autopay, Mom's Visa card, Dad's Progressive car insurance, even Brooke's Planet Fitness membership that she'd never used but refused to cancel. All of it was flowing through my accounts like an 4-drip I'd forgotten was attached. I shut it down methodically. Froze the credit cards, cancelled the autopays, changed every password, submitted requests to remove my name from shared leases and utility accounts. I wasn't angry. I was surgical. I wanted every connection severed, every financial pipeline shut off permanently. I didn't give them warning. I just waited for reality to catch up. The first text came the next morning. Brooke, all caps, why isn't my CAR starting? Then another 20 minutes later, Ella, my card isn't working. Then a phone call I didn't answer, then a voice message where she sounded genuinely confused. Mom texted next, asking if I could call Bank of America because her account was showing unusual activity and she couldn't access online banking. Like always, she came to me to fix her problems. No, how are you feeling? No, sorry about the accident. Just straight to customer service mode, like I was her personal tech support. Dad texted asking if I was still upset and whether we could talk. I didn't respond to any of it. This wasn't punishment, it was natural consequences finally catching up to people who'd never had to face them. By the end of that week, they were all in full crisis mode. Brooke called me 8 times in one afternoon. She left voice messages that escalated from confused to irritated to genuinely panicked. In the first one, she couldn't understand why her usual payment methods weren't working. By the 4th message, she was crying, real tears or performance, I couldn't tell anymore. She'd been humiliated at her favorite brunch spot when her card declined in front of her influencer friends. Her Uber account got suspended for non-payment. Her landlord at the trendy Wicker Park loft was threatening late fees that would snowball into eviction proceedings. I listened to every message without responding. Each one confirmed what I'd suspected for years. They had no idea how much I'd been quietly supporting their lifestyles. Mom's messages started sweet and gradually turned sharp. First, she asked if I could help sort out her banking issues. When I didn't respond, she sent 3 more messages over 2 days, the tone shifting from sugar to vinegar. The final one accused me of being petty and vindictive over some misunderstanding. Dad was the only one who tried to sound rational. He called Saturday morning and left a measured voicemail. Said he understood I was hurt, but freezing their accounts was an extreme overreaction. That Brooke was just financially immature sometimes, and Mom didn't mean to overlook me. He said it wasn't fair to cut them off without warning. That's when I understood something crucial. They didn't see this as me reclaiming what was mine. They saw it as theft. And that revealed everything I needed to know about how they'd viewed our relationship all along. Brooke finally showed up at my building. She buzzed my apartment 3 times in a row. I watched from my living room window as she paced by her white Jeep Wrangler, phone pressed to her ear. I didn't answer the intercom. She texted from the lobby, Ella, please. I just want to talk. I know you're up there. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, I watched her drive away through my blinds. No follow-up message. She wanted access to my accounts, not reconciliation. She wanted her lifestyle unfrozen, not the truth about what she'd done. The following Tuesday, I got a call from Chase Bank. Apparently, Brooke had tried to authorize a transaction using old joint account information, the emergency card I deactivated weeks earlier. The fraud prevention team flagged it and asked if I wanted to file a report. I declined but told them to keep all freezes in place and monitor any future access attempts. It stayed quiet for several days. Too quiet. Then came the group message that made my stomach drop. Mom, can we please act like adults and work this out? No mention of the accident. No acknowledgement of the hospital stay. No recognition of how much they'd been leaning on me financially. Just a passive-aggressive guilt trip wrapped in reasonable language. I didn't reply. 2 hours later, Dad called again. I answered this time. He didn't yell. His voice was careful, like he was navigating a minefield. He said they were all going through a rough period. That Brooke was dealing with career pressure and Mom was stressed about their mortgage. He said I'd always been the rock of the family, that they needed me to step up again. That word, needed. Like I was a utility company instead of a daughter. I let him talk for 5 solid minutes. I think he interpreted my silence as wavering. Then I asked him one simple question. When was the last time any of you did something for me? Long pause. Dead air. Then he said, "That's not how families work, Ella." Exactly. That was the moment I realized this wasn't temporary anger that would fade. This was permanent. They had mistaken my kindness for weakness, my generosity for obligation. They thought shared DNA meant automatic ownership of my resources. Not anymore. I didn't raise my voice or make threats. I simply told him the support system was officially offline. I'd handle my own bills and my own life. They could do the same. He tried to argue, but I ended the call before he could finish his sentence. It wasn't rage driving me anymore. It was perfect, crystalline clarity. And I could already see their carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. 3 days after I cut the financial cord, Brooke's phone service got disconnected. I didn't know immediately. What tipped me off was the sudden silence on her Instagram stories. This was a girl who documented her morning coffee routine. When someone who posts 12 times a day goes completely dark, you notice. I checked out of morbid curiosity. Her profile was still there, but everything was wiped clean. No posts, no bio, no profile picture. An hour later, the entire account vanished. Deleted. That was my first confirmation that her influencer paradise was collapsing. Mom, meanwhile, was doing what she always did, pretending everything was normal. She started posting in the group chat again like nothing had happened. Articles about fall decorating trends. Who remembers this Backstreet Boys song? A selfie with a pumpkin spice latte captioned, "Autumn vibes." Nobody responded. Not even Dad. Then an envelope appeared at my apartment door. Not a text or email, an actual letter in Mom's distinctive handwriting. The envelope was thick, formal. She'd always had a flair for theatrical gestures. Inside was a 4-page handwritten note about how communication had broken down, and how she hoped we could return to being a loving family. She said she was proud of me, that I'd always been the responsible one. Then came the pitch. She and Brooke were facing temporary financial difficulties, and needed a loan, just until Brooke's situation stabilized. No mention of the accident. No apology for their absence. Just a business proposal disguised as family reconciliation. She'd even attached documentation, a screenshot of Brooke's Bank of America account showing a negative balance of $2,847.33, printed credit card statements revealing nearly $5,000 in designer purchases, luxury dinners, and that Vegas trip she apparently put entirely on credit. At the bottom of the stack was a typed loan agreement, complete with interest terms, payment schedules, signature lines for me and Brooke, and a space for a witness. The kind of legal document you'd use to protect yourself from strangers in court. They'd sent it to me, the person who'd quietly covered their emergencies for years without ever asking for a receipt. I sat with that letter for hours. It wasn't just insulting, it was delusional. They'd completely detached from reality, treating our family relationship like a business transaction, while somehow expecting me to forget they'd ignored my hospitalization. I didn't respond. That same night at 9:47 p.m., someone knocked on my door. Not the building buzzer, actual knocking. I looked through the peephole and saw Nathan, Brooke's ex-boyfriend. I hadn't seen him since their messy breakup 18 months ago. I opened the door cautiously. He looked uncomfortable, like he already regretted coming. He said Brooke had given him my address, told him I was going through something, and needed intervention. She'd painted a picture where I'd lost my mind, cut everyone off without warning, and left her financially stranded. I asked directly, "Is she staying with you?" He shook his head immediately. Said she'd asked, but he wasn't stupid. Then he said something that caught me off guard. "She's been crashing on your mom's couch, and they're telling people you had some kind of breakdown." I didn't speak. He continued unprompted. He said he hadn't believed Brooke's version initially, but when he heard the story she was spreading, that I'd snapped after some minor family disagreement and abandoned them because I couldn't handle adult stress, he decided to hear my side. So I told him everything. The crash, Cedar Hills Medical Center, the silence, the money trail, the systematic shutdown. He listened without defending her, without making excuses. When he left, I thought that would be the end of it. But the next morning, he sent me a screenshot that changed everything. Nathan's screenshot was a Facebook post from my mother's account. Vague but pointed, "Please keep our family in your thoughts and prayers. Sometimes people lash out when they're in pain. We're trying to stay strong through a very difficult time. Hashtag family first, hashtag staying positive. The comment section was a parade of sympathy, sending love. You're such a strong mom. Hope everything works out. 47 reactions, mostly heart emojis and praying hands. That was my breaking point. They weren't just avoiding responsibility, they were actively rewriting history. Building a narrative where I was the unstable one, the emotionally volatile daughter who turned on her loving family for no reason. They couldn't access my bank account anymore, so now they were targeting my reputation. I didn't get angry. I got methodical. I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder I'd created after the accident. Screenshots of the group chat during my hospital stay, the missed calls, the loan agreement Mom had sent, receipts from Brooke's Vegas spending spree, even Mom's Facebook post playing victim. I sent everything to Dad. No message, no context, just the evidence. Raw facts laid out like evidence in a courtroom. 3 hours later, he called. I didn't answer. Then he texted something I never expected. I didn't know. I see it now. I'm sorry. No defense of Mom or Brooke. No excuses. Just 6 words that acknowledged the truth I'd been living with for years. But I didn't respond. I'd seen too many hollow apologies that disappeared the moment they needed something again. What I didn't anticipate was the domino effect that followed. 2 days later, I received an email from Brooke's landlord at the Wicker Park loft. My email was still listed as her emergency contact from when I'd helped her secure the lease. The message was blunt: unpaid rent, no communication, pending eviction. She'd missed the last payment entirely, and late fees were compounding daily. They tried calling, no answer. She had 5 days before they filed legal proceedings. I stared at that email, remembering all the times I'd quietly transferred money to that same management company. Brooke never even acknowledged it half the time. Once, she'd asked for rent money via text and then didn't speak to me for 3 weeks. Now she was out of safety nets. That evening, Nathan texted again. He'd gone to Mom's house to retrieve some belongings Brooke still had. Said she looked terrible, eyes swollen, pacing like she hadn't slept in days. She'd begged him to talk to me again, insisting she couldn't believe I'd do this to her. He didn't take the bait. Then he told me something that made everything click into place. Mom and Brooke had gotten into a screaming match. Brooke blamed Mom for not fixing things with me, and Mom snapped back that she wasn't made of money. The fight got so loud that neighbors called the police. Brooke stole Mom's Toyota Camry the next morning, leaving Mom stranded without transportation. That was when I understood the real damage. They weren't just panicking about money, they were panicking because their entire family structure had been built around me silently carrying the weight. When I stepped back, it wasn't just about bills. It was about identity. Without me funding their illusions, they had nothing solid underneath. 3 days later, I found an envelope shoved under my apartment door. No postmark, no return address. Inside was a printed screenshot, a Venmo transfer confirmation showing an attempted $1,200 withdrawal from one of my old savings accounts. Brooke had tried to access an account I'd forgotten she even knew about. The transfer failed because I'd already locked it down, but the attempt was documented. She'd gone searching through old account information, looking for any forgotten access point. That was it. No more benefit of the doubt. No more hope for family reconciliation. I went to the Chicago Police Department the next morning. I didn't press full charges, but I filed a fraud alert and had the attempt officially documented. The bank flagged her information permanently. If she tried again, it would trigger automatic legal proceedings. Then I blocked them all. Phone numbers, email addresses, social media, the group chat. I even locked down accounts they didn't know existed, just to be safe. Every door slammed shut. The aftermath continued unfolding without my involvement. Brooke lost her apartment. Mom's electricity got shut off. Their social circle began shrinking too, probably exhausted by the constant drama. Dad stayed completely silent. I think he finally understood the cost of choosing sides. And me? I didn't celebrate or gloat. I just lived quietly for the first time in years. No midnight crisis calls, no bank notifications for emergency transfers, no guilt trips disguised as family love. Just peace. They called it selfish abandonment. I called it survival. It's been 3 months since I cut them off completely. No contact, no drama, just the kind of silence I used to crave when I was drowning in their chaos. Brooke never apologized, not for the fraud attempt, not for the lies, not for ignoring my hospitalization. Last I heard through mutual friends, she was sleeping on a college roommate's couch in Pilsen, working retail at Forever 21. Mom's still performing for social media, posting inspirational quotes about broken families and learning forgiveness. My cousin sent me screenshots where she positioned herself as the wounded mother whose ungrateful daughter abandoned the family during their time of need. Dad remained completely silent, which surprised me most. I expected him to try rebuilding something, even just to ease his own guilt. But I think he finally understood what my silence meant. It wasn't a negotiation. It was a period at the end of a sentence. I moved to a new apartment in Andersonville last month. New bank, new phone number, no forwarding address. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, not even the cousin who tried staying neutral. Not because I'm afraid, but because this time I'm not leaving any access points. The old Ella would have kept one door slightly open, just in case. The new one doesn't. I still have all the evidence, the screenshots, the loan agreement, the voicemail where Brooke sobbed about how I'd destroyed her life. Not for revenge, but for memory. Because here's what nobody tells you, cutting off family doesn't feel like empowerment. It feels like grief, like mourning something that never existed the way you hoped it did. But every day that grief gets quieter. Every day my phone stays silent, and that silence feels more like safety than loneliness. They spent years assuming I'd always be there, that they could take without giving and I'd keep building bridges they'd burned. They finally learned what happens when the bridge builder walks away and takes all the materials with her. And I learned something too, family isn't who shares your last name. It's who shows up when your world shatters, not just when theirs does. Nobody, not even blood relatives, has a permanent right to your kindness if they treat it like a credit card with no limit. This wasn't revenge. It was self-preservation. And for the first time in my adult life, I'm finally living for myself. The silence isn't empty anymore. It's full of possibility.